Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services here this morning, we would kindly ask if everyone would please turn off or silence all electronic devices. Thank you.
Matach palei ורחוק מפנים מכרה בטח פעלי פעלה ושאלה לא יחזור גמלתותו ולא רע כל ימי חייה.
Chazan Pomeranz Boro, with whom Ada had many happy years of davening, has begun our service with the familiar words said Friday nights, first by King Solomon and most deserving of Ada. A woman of valor, who can find? Her worth is far above rubies. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he has no hope of gain. She renders him good and evil all the days of her life. She opens her hand to the needy. She extends her hand to the poor. She is robed in strength and dignity and cheerfully faces whatever may come. She opens her mouth with wisdom. Her tongue is guided by kindness. She tends to the affairs of her household and eats not of the bread of idleness. Her children come forward and bless her. Her husband too sings her praises, saying, many women have done superbly, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful, beauty is vain, but a God-revering woman is much to be praised. Place before her the fruit of her hands, for wherever good people gather, her deeds will forever speak her praise. Mizmor David, Adonai Roi Lo Echsar, Benot Desher Yarbitzeni Almei Menuchot Yinahaleni Nafshi Shovev Yancheni V'Magalei Tzedek L'man Shemo Gam Ki Elech V'Geit Salmave Lo Ira Ra Ki Ata Imati Shivtecha Mishantecha Hema Yenachamuni Ta'aroch Lefanai Shulchan Neged Zorurai Dishanta V'Shem Roshi Kosi Revaya Ach Tov V'Chesed Yudefuni Ko Yemei Chayai V'Shavti V'Beit Adonai The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. God guides me in paths of righteousness, revives my soul for the sake of his glory. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod give comfort. You set a table in the sight of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall abide in the house of the Lord forever. Good people, it is with heavy hearts that we gather close to Rosh Hashanah, a time when the gates of heaven are opening for the prayers of the Jewish people, to remember Ada Feiwus-Richards, the true matriarch of this family. At this sacred time of year, Ada's pure and loving soul has passed through those heavenly gates, from this world into the next, and back into the loving arms of God. I know that our service here today is being viewed in Israel, where much of the family now makes their lives. So let me begin there. As you know, in Israel there are two great seas, one in the north and one in the south. The one in the north is called the Kinneret, the harp, which reminds us of music and of Ada. What makes the Kinneret so special is that several rivers come together to contribute to it, but the water that enters it flows out the other side even stronger. People come to swim and to boat and to even drink of the waters of the Sea of Galilee. But further down the Jordan, there's another sea. Here, no one drinks. The waters are hot, salty, and lifeless, because every drop that enters it stays there. It takes everything and gives nothing back, and that's why it's called the Dead Sea. Well, Ada was like the Kinneret, always giving, the source of light, love, goodness in this world. And like the Kinneret, people gravitated towards her. You couldn't help it. She was so friendly and warm. Ada gave away far more of herself than she ever got from other people. And she was happiest when she was making other people happy. So today we come together to recall the blessings of her spirit that were shared by so many for so long. Ada was the daughter of Sam and Ann Weinstein. She grew up in Brooklyn, and all you had to do was talk to her for a moment, and you would know that. Her father worked hard to provide for the family, and Ada deeply appreciated everything that they did for her. She was the most devoted daughter early in life and throughout her parents' lives until their final days. Ada was very musical. She loved playing the piano. She used the proceeds from her first job to buy a piano, and she kept that instrument throughout her life. It wasn't easy for the family growing up. Ada was clearly a child of the Depression, and certainly that influenced the course of her life. She was thrifty and street smart. She knew how to make the most out of every opportunity that came her way, and she did. And so it was that an active, athletic, and vivacious Ada set her sights on one Jack Feiwus at a synagogue dance in Brooklyn. The way I was told the story, it was she who picked him up. But it must have been love at first sight, because 6 weeks later they were already engaged, and on a very hot day in July of 1953, the two of them were married. All the food, I heard, went bad, but the marriage never did. Family was their focus, and I know that some of Ada's family from Montreal, with whom she always kept close, are joining us virtually here today. The cousins were like sisters and brothers to her, and I know that Ada had many fond memories of the family in Canada. After a honeymoon at the Nevele, Jack and Ada began their life together in Brooklyn, and that's where you spent your early years growing up, Howie. But the need for family drew ever more, and so they moved to Union to be closer to Bertha, Jack's sister. In time, of course, they were blessed with two more loving and lovely children, in you, Karen, and Lenny. And I know that each of you will speak from your hearts in just a few moments, but I also know how blessed the three of you felt to have been raised by parents as much in love as yours. I know that sometimes it might have seemed like you were living through an episode of The Honeymooners, but there was never any doubt that your parents were endlessly devoted to one another. Your mother was a driving force in your life, encouraging you to do your best and to be your best. She supported you in everything that you wanted to accomplish. She was your biggest cheerleader and your confidant, and in many ways, your hero. Jewish life, of course, was important to Ada, and she was the guiding force of Jewish identity in your family, and she made that a priority in your lives throughout. She taught you what matters most in this world, and she led by example. Your mom was always extending herself to other people and welcoming them into your childhood home. She was the glue that held the family and extended family together, and family unity was always her top priority. Ada was a natural peacemaker, and if there were any ruffled feathers in the family, Ada was the one to smooth them out. Her easygoing disposition, her good-natured, positive attitude, there was never any doubt that when you were around Ada, things were good and would be better. Family always came first. And so it was when you and her family decided to have families of your own. You looked for people to give you the same kind of love that you saw your parents share and have the same qualities as your mom, warm, giving, and caring. And each of you, Michelle and Barrett and Ilya, and of course my friend Jeff Berger of blessed memory, were all warmly welcomed into Ada's home and into her heart. She made it so easy. Nothing was too much for her when it came to her family, and so you kind of got used to it when she came and took over the kitchen and brought most of the meal with her. And why not? She was a fabulous cook, and she had boundless energy, and so why not? It was all out of love, and she felt that love in return. She did not draw attention to herself, but she made sure that everything ran smoothly for her children and their families always. So in time she was blessed with grandchildren, Jessica and Marissa, Adina, Tamar and Joe, my guys, and Jacob and Eitan, and each of you will have so many precious memories shared with your nanny throughout the years. She was a constant and consistent presence in your life every single day. She routinely, as we spoke about, went above and beyond. If you liked something, you got it, and then you got more of it, and then some more. And she wanted to make grandchildren happy, but all of you should know that you made her supremely happy as well. Your nanny was a very powerful role model in her grandchildren's lives and showed you all how to do life right. She was proud of each of you, and she took great pride in the fact that when her children and their spouses and her grandchildren grew, they all modeled the values that they saw in her. She was overjoyed when she saw her grandchildren get married to Ross, Nathaniel, and Giddy. And of course, the great-grandchildren, well, that is just the icing on the cake. And even if the little ones won't grow up with her physical presence, they will still know Ada through the indelible impression that she has made on all of your lives. Ada was, if nothing else, resilient. She took life as it came. She made the most of the cards that were dealt her. When Jeff died, Jack and Ada knew exactly what they needed to do. And they had to be closer to you, Karen, and to your kids, and so they planned to move to Cherry Hill, and unfortunately, as we all remember so well, Jack died before they ever had the chance to move into the house on Garden State Drive. But fortunately, the Karens, Chastenberger, stepped in and gave Ada and you, Harvey, a new lease on life and love. And I, of course, had the honor of marrying the two of you years ago as you began that new life together. And Harvey, it was a great one. You shared a love of music and art and theater, culture. And all of us who saw you in shul could tell how enamored you were of one another and the joy that you brought to each other's life. The two of you got to travel the world together. New Zealand and Australia and Hawaii and Spain and lots of other places around the world and in this country. You shared a deep and meaningful level of love, and you looked out for one another. And I know that the entire family is grateful to you, Harvey, for being that partner for Ada and enriching the latter half of her life in the way no one else could. The two of you were so blessed to have had one another. And we were lucky to have Harvey and Ada as part of our Shabbos community, and I was lucky to have her living in the neighborhood. And that was especially true, of course, Karen, for you and for your kids, something you never took for granted. She became like a second mom to your kids, as they spoke about yesterday. And I also remember, when you came into Karen's life and the great joy, really, that she would have that second lease on life and on love as well. And not only did you make Karen happy, but you expanded Ada's family with the love of your children. We got to share in that love too. And the same is true for Karen and Bill Chast and their kids, as well as Joel and Cindy and yours. So many lives touched by Ada. She gave so much to so many and really asked for nothing in return. Nothing but the love that she received. The Ada that I know appreciated everything. She loved to live. There was joy and laughter about her. She had a wry sense of humor, and there were definitely Ada-isms, the way of looking at the world that not quite like anyone else. She kept it interesting, but her optimism and her sense of hopefulness, living come what may, her positive attitude and that smile on her face were truly infectious. And she never lost it. Even when she had to come to grips with the illness later in her life, she was always so sweet and happy, even if she was a bit confused. She never lost her pleasant disposition. And I remember earlier this summer when we were together, how, with Ada, she was sharing smiles with everyone in the room, perfectly at peace, content, and happy. And that is indeed the way that Ada would want to be remembered, as a source of goodness in the world, who was happy and hopeful, eager to help others and to share the boundless love within. Loving her made all of you better people. And as a result, that love will now span the generations. Fate has taken her physical presence from your lives, but nothing will take her spiritual presence, for her soul will forever be entwined with each of yours. So live fully and love deeply, and you will forever be touched by the heart, the grace, the goodness of this very special woman. Tehei nishmata tzrura b'tzrura chaim, may the soul of Adel, Bat Shmuel, Yitzchak, Vechana be bound in the bond of eternal life, and her memory be a blessing in the hearts and homes of all those who knew and loved her forever. Amen. Marissa, I'm going to call on you first.
Today you're going to hear many stories about my Nana from my dad, Aunt Karen, Uncle Lenny, and other members of my family. But I'm going to speak from a granddaughter's perspective. I want to tell you what it was like. Nana was always there with a smile, whether it be hosting Shabbat dinner, holiday meals, or schlepping to be there for us. And she made everything she did look so easy. She loved to cook, and she taught us some of her recipes over the years, including how to make the fluffiest matzo balls. Poppy used to say, "Ada, you make the best chicken," and she did. We had Shabbat dinner almost every Friday night together when we were growing up before she moved down to Cherry Hill. From sleepovers to playing games with us, she was a wonderful Nana. She used to knit us sweaters and made us jewelry, and I'm actually wearing one of the necklaces that she made for us. One afternoon, my parents couldn't come to a soccer game, so Nana and Poppy took me. Of course, Nana brought a big picnic basket of pastrami sandwiches, and I was the goalie, and Nana and Poppy decided to sit right in back of the goal. Every time I punted the ball, Nana would try chatting with me while Poppy would yell out, "Good punt, Marissa." The coach didn't have the heart to tell them that they shouldn't be sitting behind the goal. COVID didn't make it easy because visitors weren't always allowed, but the Lions Gate was really fantastic about FaceTiming with me and all the grandchildren. Just last week we FaceTimed and I was able to show her our new home, and she even recognized a piece of furniture that was her mother's, which stores our Judaica. Another thing I loved about Nana is when you told Nana you liked something, she would go above and beyond to make it for you. For instance, I told Nana I loved this pie she made on Rosh Hashanah one year. She decided to mail it across the country to Arizona when I was in college. She'd call me every day to see if it arrived. I'd tell her, no, not yet. Then the calls became constant, and I was in the middle of midterms, so I decided to tell her I got the pies, and I thanked her for them. They're so delicious, thank you so much. She'd say, make sure to share them with your friends, but don't share too much because I want you to enjoy them. Shockingly, the pies returned to Nana's home address a few months later. I then received a call from my mom early in the morning. Nana got the pies back in the mail and she's going to call you to ask you why you told her you got the pie. I told Nana for all of her efforts I received the pies because I didn't want her to feel bad. She luckily wasn't upset at all, and her intent was just for me to enjoy the pie. That's the thing about Nana. She wanted us to be happy and enjoy life and taught us how important family and Jewish values are. She was a terrific Nana, and I'm going to miss her so much.
Barry?
Ada was a wonderful woman and an amazing mother-in-law. I was truly blessed to know her. She was always positive and cheery. I enjoyed seeing her always. I learned so many things from her over the years: patience, respect, kindness, unconditional love, and how to see the world through rose-colored lenses. The positive energy was infectious. I loved her so very much, and I always will.
I know that whatever words I'm writing here will not express the grief and loss shared by everyone that gathered here to honor Nana. And I also know that this elegy to her will be just one of many that will or have been spoken today. But I want you to know that what I say here genuinely came from my heart. When I think of Nana, I think of her love for music. She sent my father to piano lessons, loved to listen to my brother play the violin, and even when old age had clouded her mind, she was still able to enjoy a music piece I had made. Nana was sweet and kind, always smiling, treating others with more generosity than anyone I've ever met. She would send letters all the time, wanting to know how I was, where I'd been, and if I was happy. I can't recall a time when she wasn't smiling. I wished I just could have spent a little bit more time with her. I feel like I didn't write to her enough, didn't talk to her enough, didn't reach out to her enough. But it's too late for that. You never know the value of someone until you lose them. Nana wasn't always able to visit us, but she never gave up on reaching out to us. Whether it be sending presents, letters, or phone calls, she always tried to reach out. No matter the situation, she always wanted her family to know the love she had for them. A love so rich and deep that I think many may not fully appreciate. Nana was one of the kindest, sincerest, and generous people. I have nothing but regret that I can no longer tell these words to Nana, but at least I can share them with you.
I first learned that you died when my dad told me 3 days ago. At first I thought he was joking, but then I realized that it was true because it was very sad. I ran to give my dad a hug, saying, "I'm sorry, Dad." And I asked him, "What were your last words?" Dad told me, "You passed away quietly in your sleep." I was relieved that it was not painful for you. I was your youngest grandson, so I had less time to get to know you, which I greatly regret. Before going, I wish I had more time together. But the few times I was able to see you last year, I could tell you were such a lovely and happy person. Even though you were getting very sick, I had a strong connection with you because I knew you were my grandma. But it was always funny when you thought I was Jacob. You seemed so proud of me when I played violin for you. It encourages me and makes me want to keep practicing more and more. I wish I could give you one last hug. I always miss you.
I think sometimes the shortest speeches are always the best ones, so bear with me. Thank you, Rabbi Krupnik, for your beautiful eulogy. It was so right on point. And on behalf of my family, I wish to welcome all of you here. And we're so glad that you're here to help us say goodbye to our Nana, our mother. I'd like to share a few fond memories I have that I have of my mom. Rabbi Krupnik mentioned that sometimes we felt we lived in the world of the honeymooners. This was particularly true for me. I am 8 years younger than my sister and 10 years younger than my brother. So at the time I was 10, I was pretty much an only child in that house with my father and my mother. And they had a special, very special, extremely rich and profound love that was expressed in honeymooner type ways. So one of my early memories really is of her wonderful sense of humor and how she addressed world's challenges, family challenges, with humor. When I was 10 or 11, my mom and I would stay up late at night and we would watch reruns of The Honeymooners together. In nearly every episode, the ne'er-do-well bus driver Ralph Crandon, played by Jackie Gleason, would get mad at his wife Alice. His eyes would roll and bulge out of his head, and he would deliver his iconic one-liners. Most famously, "Oh, one day, Alice, bang, zoom, right to the moon." Alice was unflappable, and she would just look at Ralph with comic disdain, and my mom and I would laugh hysterically. We loved the show, particularly because Gleason reminded us so much of my dad, who, like Crandon, was just a big, harmless teddy bear, tantruming like a child sometimes. One close childhood friend, who knew my mother well, said what so many others have today. He never remembers my mother without a smile on her face. She was upbeat, positive, and happy, and could laugh at life even when things went sour. She could see the humor in Ralph Crandon and in my dad, even when he was angry or outrageous. And I believe this was part of the successful chemistry of their marriage for so many years. My mom was also like Alice, unflappable and unfiltered. This kind, exceptionally sweet woman was not easily shaken by my dad or by anyone else. She had a quick wit and could snap back with humor, even if you were angry, frustrated, or you were trying to engage her in an argument. After she had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, but before she really began to suffer hard from the disease, I remember one instance when Harvey was very frustrated, looking for his keys, complaining he couldn't find them. Without missing a beat, my mom snapped, "And they say that I have Alzheimer's?" This was quintessential Ada. She didn't fight fair because she didn't fight back. My mom just diffused the situation, usually with some rich humor, which she always seemed to find. I think she liked me best. She didn't like me best. But I think she liked me best when I was relaxed and funny. But often I did not play that role with her. Too eager to show her that I was a grown-up like everyone else in our family, I, the youngest son, tried to use my smarts and my fancy education, as she would say, to show her who was boss. Well, she was the boss, and she took my adolescent moods in stride, and again, often diffused frustration or anger with good humor and kindness. She always knew who you were, and she always accepted you as you came with unconditional love. My mother was also rather indestructible. Years ago, when she was probably around the age I am now, I remember she had 2, maybe 3 bouts with cancer. I remember visiting her at the hospital several times, before and after one of her many surgeries. She always appeared fearless and in good, positive spirits. It didn't amaze me then, because that is who she always was. But with hindsight, it amazes me now. Similarly, I know she was struck hard by my father's death and struggled with the fear and complication of remaking her life. None of this, however, was apparent on the surface. She just did what she always did. It reflects the strength of who she was and how she lived her life. It is written in Pirkei Avot, Ezehu Ashir Hasamech Bechelko, who is rich, one who rejoices in their share. If I were to capture my mother with one simple phrase, that would be it. My mother came from humble beginnings, a flat in Brooklyn from a working class family. They had no money. My mom had no college, and she married young. Once married with 3 kids, there were many tough times. as well. I remember vividly growing up during the 1970s when money was particularly tight. It wasn't easy for her and my dad to make ends meet. Yet, I never saw my mother jealous of what any other person had. She never complained about what she didn't have. If I complained, and I did complain, if I complained about stuff that we didn't have, she would say, "Len, look to your right and look to your left. Those on the left have less than you, so you be happy with what you've got." As anyone who knew her would tell you, this was a woman who was ever cheerful, optimistic, loving, and altruistic throughout. This basic life tenet to be happy with what you've got emanated from her. My mother had no particular love or desire of material possessions. She never ever drove a new car, and I don't think she ever bought an item of clothing for herself that wasn't on sale. She appreciated beauty, but disdained those things that are fancy and pretentious. She disliked arrogance and shrewd people, which she easily detected. Yet she rarely had a bad word to say about anyone. My mother was never mean-spirited. She refrained from fighting with others, and typically looked, as Rabbi Krupnik said, to mend fences and to take the high road. Above all else, she loved and valued her family, her friends, educating her children, treating others with respect. My mom was profoundly content just making a warm, loving Jewish home for her husband and children. And in this, she succeeded. Indeed, she excelled. Mom was also quite wise in ways that were not obvious. She was a talented pianist and had a serious appreciation for music and the arts, especially classical music and opera. I can remember often she spent summers with my dad in Tanglewood, dragging him to performances at Jacob's Pillow. Mom insisted that each of us learn music, and we did. And she insisted that we each at least try an instrument, something I did grudgingly as a child. Frequent birthday gifts from her to me, and some of the best ones I got, were CDs of classical music or opera that she wanted me to enjoy. Just a few years ago, as my kids took up music in their school, I decided to try to go back to playing the piano. Heavy emphasis on trying. It was after a hiatus of 40 years. And it was before my mom went to assisted living. She was still living in Cherry Hill in her home. She was able to visit us. And I tried to play her a short, familiar, piano sonata that I knew she was familiar with. Mom was already showing signs of decline, but without missing a beat, she critiqued my technique, and accurately so, and sat down to try to play for herself. I took the opportunity then, after so many years, to thank her for the gift of music that she gave me, and the sacrifices she made. And the sacrifices, no doubt, that she made for my piano lessons as a child. She just looked at me, much like the way that Alice would look at Ralph Cramden, as if to say, "Yeah, what took you so long?" For a woman with little formal education, she was smart enough to know when a problem needed serious attention, and she made sure to address it. I was with her on that cold winter morning in 1983, when my father returned from walking the dog complaining of severe chest pains. My mother insisted that he immediately call his doctor, and go to the hospital, something he strongly resisted. Finally, he reluctantly agreed and went to the hospital. I was with my mother later that day, went to visit my father in his hospital room, and I was with her when he had his massive heart attack right in front of us in the hospital. The doctors told us, had he not been in the hospital, he surely would not have made it. So my mother's call was the right one and surely saved his life. Giving us all the blessing of 20 extra years with my father. For a frugal woman who we called the coupon queen, she knew how to turn 2 cents into 3. Mom wanted to spend her money wisely on 3 children, on Jewish summer camps, on trips to Israel, on Jewish day school, and for me in particular, covering the tuition expenses of college and graduate school and then law school. If I needed an apartment, a car, or spending money, I had it. Her selflessness was unbounded. But beyond education for me or the others, which was very high on our list, the most important thing for my mother was that her children had good values and were good people. She always said, irrespective of whatever degrees I earned or whatever job I took, it was paramount that I would be a good person, a mensch, something that I strive for still every day. So again, I take perhaps my last opportunity to thank you, Ma, for everything you gave me. And everything that you gave to all of us, and the love, the patience, and the wisdom and good humor that you showed me and all of us, all of your life. I love you, and I always will. Thank you again for coming.
Again, I want to thank everybody for coming. Before I start, as Rabbi Krupnik mentioned, my 3 children are in Israel. They really would have loved to come, but not really possible. And my daughter Tamar sent a little voice note that she wanted me to share with everybody. So I'm just going to play that for everybody. Okay?
Tonight, our family had a conversation about our memories of Nana throughout the years. We spoke about how Nana would go to the end of the world to make sure you had what you wanted, and sometimes she would overload you with it. As I write this, I look at 3 items that Nana made for me: knitted slippers, a needlepoint of Hasidim dancing, and a needlepoint of Yerushalayim. Each one with its own story behind it, but the most special one being my needlepoint of Yerushalayim, a piece of art that she created for me when I told her about my dream of being an Aliyah when I was 5 years old. The fact that my Nana believed in my dream of Aliyah, that she saw my passion for Israel even as a 5-year-old, and that she always supported me in that dream and all my others, was no small thing. That was Nana. Supportive, caring, and loving Nana. A real matriarch who literally did it all, from needlepointing to making jewelry, to cooking awesome chippies, to taking care of me when I was sick. Someone that knew how to enjoy life, not sweat the small things, and take life with a sense of humor. Her love for theater was real, and she was the first one to take me to see a Broadway show, something that I will truly never forget. I mean, we saw Peter Pan, and the dog was named Nana. How could I forget that? Beyond the physical aspects of her love, though, were deep emotional elements. The amount of deep conversations that we had throughout the years about important topics such as being Shomer Shabbos, Kashrus, friendships, death, love, the importance of being a Jew, and others are conversations that I will never forget. In fact, at a certain point, we couldn't even have the TV on in the kitchen anymore or listen to Dennis Prager in the car because we just had too much to talk about. And when she moved into Cherry Hill, that was truly one of the best parts of my childhood. That was when I gave her the title of my second mother. This new home gave me another place to chill, play with my friends, watch TV, and eat her chippies. She also was extremely gracious to let us put our basketball hoop on her driveway. She helped me through the transition from losing my father, not having a father, and then having my mother remarry. We discussed the power of love and how one can love again after the loss of their first love. When my mom did remarry and we were told that we were moving from Cherry Hill to West Orange, I adamantly told Nana that I would just move in with her. And when I couldn't actually do that, I remember staying by her very often. Sometimes she would drive me from West Orange to Cherry Hill, a perfect opportunity for our deep talks and lessons about driving. Like that the left lane was for going fast and the right lane was for going slow. Nana was not just a grandmother to me growing up. She was literally my second mother. She loved me, scolded me, criticized me, and took care of me like a mother. And that is not something I will ever forget. She taught me the importance of being a mensch, judging others favorably, and respecting all people. Nana, as I sit here looking at your artwork, your slippers, and your pictures, please know that you will never be forgotten. You will always be remembered. I love you so much, Nana. May your memory forever be a blessing.
Hard to follow. We all have our funny, silly, loving stories about Nanny. Our Ada Potato, Nana Banana jokes. She was so good-natured and easygoing, she took it all with the love with which it was intended. But my memories of my mom go much farther and deeper, as she left an indelible imprint on me from the time I was a kid. My mom taught me so many life lessons. When I was young and too timid to ask a simple question, she would say, "Ask, what's the big deal? What are they going to do, bite your head off?" Or she wanted me to make a major change in my life, like pushing me from public school to Solomon Schechter. She said, "You have to at least try it. You never know unless you try." These are things she said all the time. She always talked about the importance of values and setting priorities, and she always taught me that nobody is perfect and to look for the good in people. My mom knew how to get things done. When she took on a project as PTA president at Schechter, she competently took charge and genuinely loved working with all the other moms on a common goal. My memories as a kid revolve around our many family events which took place in our house. Making a Seder for 25 extended family members, my Sweet 16, the extended family gatherings for family, birthdays, graduations, Shabbos meals, holiday meals, seemed natural and easy for her. These were her greatest pleasures. As I got older and had my own family, she never came to visit without bringing her homemade chicken soup or chopped liver, and never sat idly to be served. She was a constant presence in the kitchen, always helping. She didn't grow up in a religious home, and she always regretted not having a Jewish education, and she always wanted her kids to have that. She pushed my father to take us to shul because her parents sent her by herself. She understood that you had to lead by example, and she taught by example. When her own mother, my Nana, was suffering with cancer in a hospital bed in our living room, she selflessly cared for her, telling me, "Nobody loves you like your mom." This is so true. My mom gave unconditional love, always putting her family needs above her own. I think I often took this for granted because it was such a given that she was always there and always willing to help. I never needed to ask her whether she would do something, like, "Oh, I think we'll do a Dina's bat mitzvah at your house, okay?" Or, "Oh, so you'll drive to Boston and help me move into my new apartment?" Or even, "So you'll come babysit my 3 kids for 10 days so I can go to Israel with my husband?" I don't ever remember her saying, "No, I can't do that." It was just a given. While Jeff was in the hospital, she and my father were already making their plans to sell their house and move to Cherry Hill. It was a given that they would be there for me and her 3 grandchildren. And though my dad didn't quite make it, my mom came and was there 100%. But my mom was not a hoverer and never felt the need to interfere. She only wanted to be there for us. When I met Ilya and it was time for me to move, she only expressed joy for me. By then she had her own life with Harvey, and she was excited that I would be beginning my new life with Ilya. We would joke on the phone when she would see my friends at ShopRite in Cherry Hill, and I would see her union friends in the ShopRite in West Orange. These last few years were difficult, watching her deteriorate while also navigating through COVID. I am so thankful that my mom and Harvey had a chance to move to Lionsgate when they did, and a chance to enjoy it before COVID hit. She was so social, and when I visited her there, she would introduce me to all her new friends. When Adina came from Israel with her great-grandson, Chagai, she showed him off to everyone and insisted that I give her hard copy pictures for her pocketbook to show to all her friends. As her disease progressed and she became more and more confused, she was still herself in so many ways. She was never agitated or angry, just pleasantly confused. When I apologized for not being able to visit, she would say, "It's okay, you'll come next week." When I complained about this terrible virus shutting everything down in the world, she said, "It's just a virus, it'll get better." As it became harder for her to have a conversation, she was content just to say, "I love you," and throw kisses. Never complaints, just loved. That was who she was to the very end. I loved her, and I miss her.
Well, they all said everything I was going to say. Irma Bombeck once wrote, "Given another shot at life, I would seize every minute, look at it, really see it, live it, and never give it back. Stop sweating the small stuff. Don't worry about who doesn't like you, who has more, or who's doing what. Instead, let's cherish the relationships we have with those who do love us." My mom never showed any insecurity. She was content with what she had, never looked at anybody's pocketbook. Her main goal in life was to get married, have children, and raise a family. And her family was her everything. It took me until I got married and started my own family to recognize the work involved in raising children. How often she would say to me, "One day you'll get married and I just hope you have a child just like you." Michelle was lucky. We had 2 easy daughters to raise while she had me. People that know me from the early years know I wasn't an easy child. Today, I guess I would have been classified as ADHD. She always found clever ways to help me learn. When we had spelling tests, I remember how she helped me remember simple words. Always a game, such as the word about. How many times we sat and she'd go, A-B-O-U-T. Even when the last couple of weeks when I reminded her of that, it brought a chuckle to her, smile to her face. After making dinners, doing laundry, cleaning house, no matter how exhausted she was, she always had time to give me what she called our 2 minutes. She'd come to my bedroom, ask me questions about my day and the issues I had to discuss. Most of the time, those 2 minutes lasted a lot longer, sometimes an hour. She always made the necessary time to guide me, help me deal with whatever emotional issues I had on any particular day. That was my mom. And how proud she was to see that all her hard work proved successful, to see the boy she raised turned out to be the man I became. We had this special bond which we discussed once in a while, me acknowledging her hard work, helping me, her giving me accolades for what I had become. We wound up working together with my dad in the real estate office for years. I saw how she spoke to anyone that came into the office, the way she got to know any individual, the questions she'd ask and the way she listened to them, the help she'd offer, the genuine concern she'd show. A lot of times she'd offer medical advice as if she was a doctor, giving her home phone number and saying, "Call me anytime if you have any questions, I'd love to help you." She was the ultimate caregiver. Yes, there are 1,001 funny stories, some of which you just heard. Like the time I had a problem with an American Express bill. Michelle usually would make a call to complain for me, but my mom, sitting in the office, insisted, "Don't be silly, I can do it. I'll just pretend I'm Michelle." But when the person at American Express asked, "Can I speak to your husband?" her response was, My husband is dead." 2 days later, I received a letter of condolence on my untimely death, and my American Express card was canceled. God bless Ada. Basically, anyone that knew my mom knew her with a smile on her face, a person that always had time to listen and help. I was always able to count on her, and she was able to count on me. We were there for each other. When my dad was in the hospital, we would divide responsibilities, hug each other, help each other through each crisis. I knew how frustrating it was during the pandemic for her, not really understanding what the virus was and wondering why nobody was coming to visit her. She felt abandoned. That, to me, was the saddest part of the pandemic. And once able to visit, it was just for 1 hour a week. The rest of the week was sitting in her room watching TV, waiting. And thank God for Harvey, who once things opened up, was able to visit most days, albeit for 1 hour at a time, but you can see her smile when he walked into the room and gave her a big kiss. And her acknowledging me when I said to her, "It must be so frustrating for you to know what you want to say and yet unable to verbalize it correctly." In the end, I feel good that at least I was able to give back to her these last days by coming to visit her weekly, a small price to pay for what she gave me my entire life. I love you, Mom. I'll never forget you. You'll always be my heart and my mind.
want to thank everyone from the family who has shared so deeply of their hearts. We'll have the chance to, of course, give condolences as Shiva commences. Following our funeral here today, the burial will take place in Mount Lebanon Cemetery in Iceland, and then the family will be sitting Shiva, including Harvey, in West Caldwell, and they'll be able to furnish you with the details as well as a Zoom link for online Shiva services Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday afternoons. Please rise now for the memorial prayers.
את נשמת אדו בת שמואל יצחק וחנה שהלכה לעולמה בגן עדן ומנוחתה. אנא בעל הרחמים תסדירה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים ותיצרה בזרח חיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה ותנוח בשלום המשכבה ונאמר אמן.
O God, exalted and full of compassion, we pray that you grant perfect peace under the wings of your sheltering presence to the soul of Ada Feiwus-Richards, who is going to her eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that she performed as she graced this, the land of the living. May her soul thus be bound in the bond of eternal life, for the Lord is her portion. May she rest in peace. And together we say, Amen. You may be seated, please.
May we have the pallbearers, please? I will ask everyone to rise once more, please. Just put your hands up, cast the walk on side, please. Your shape is straight really open, so should I go down? We'll ask everyone else to please take seats again. Thank you. please
side
open the
aisle, go through the
cemetery
front
with
door.
us. We'll ask if you could please indicate
Anybody that was in the
where you
family
plan
room,
your car,
side aisle,
so
front
we can
door.
get moving. Who do you actually name to?
Shall I tell out whatever you do? You're gonna be upstate. I think we're gonna stay.